Charlie, Houston's so diverse, and we have so many great, wonderful bridge players and so many wonderful clubs. I direct, and it is challenging being one of many directors at a club and knowing that different directors enforce things differently. Would it be appropriate for the unit board to come up with some policies that each one of the club managers, because I realize it's their right, could review, and if they decide to adopt them, give a copy of them to their directors, saying this is how I want things done in my club, just so we'd all be doing the same thing.
Right, seems like as long as it's proposed as a suggestion.
Right.
Because the unit does not have any direct control over the club. They are independent entities. So if the unit board says we have a whole bunch of different groups here and we'd like to try and get some sort of standard, please take a look at this and see if it's acceptable to your club, and if so, please adopt it. That would be a very reasonable approach. Knowing people, I mean, the Supreme Court rules 5-4 and 6-3 all the time, so there are going to be different opinions.
But just to give you an example, where I direct, there's probably 6 or 8 different directors, and they have 2 games a week on Monday and Friday. And I give out probably 3 do not play every time I direct, just to get the game back on track. And frequently the players are very upset about that, and they get less upset when I explain this is not going to prevent you from winning. You're going to get match pointed on the boards that you did play. And if they're playing 9 3-board rounds and they miss 1 board, they're still playing 26 boards, and I can get the game back on track. But it's been mentioned to me by many players many times, without smiles on their face, that I'm the only one that does this. But I tend to listen to all the East-West pairs that are coming up to me telling me their feet are starting to hurt. They're spending so much time standing because they can't move. So I would feel much more supported if my club manager took a position one way or the other, and if we're just going to, because I know we have directors of this club that don't even call around. They don't even call around. People can just move when they want to move. And half the players like that. And then there's the other half of the players that don't want to spend 4 hours and 15 minutes playing 26 boards. So, not to whine as a director, but we're the bottom rung. You got the unit board, you got the club managers, and you got the, as you say, enforcers. And so when everybody's sort of doing their own thing, I can see why the players get confused. I mean, when I walk into the club, I have people greet me with, "Oh, great, you're directing today?" And I have people greet with me, "Oh, God, you're directing today?" And here I am. So, and I don't think we should all have our own style. I think we should be responsible to our club managers, and you get it.
Well, one suggestion I have is when you have a number of directors who direct at the same club, to have once a month, once a quarter, have a get-together, a couple of drinks, and tell war stories, discuss things. Another thing, if the people that you give the no plays to are habitually late or slow, then you might warn them that the next time there's going to be a match point penalty, rather than giving them a no play.
I wouldn't want to be the only director that did that. I mean, if that's what the club manager wants, then that's what I'll do. But I'm already the hard ass of the club. I mean, I can get run out of town on a wheel if I start giving match point penalties too.
I think Carolyn is making a very good point, and I think really the unit needs to develop guidelines, and the unit members, the board of these, need to live by those guidelines. Because I have seen some board members were extremely, very, very nasty in games. They really need to live with the no tolerance policy themselves. They're an example to everybody else, and some of the board members do not live by the policy. So that's my first point. Second, Carolyn has an excellent point. The board need to make guidelines, and the club managers need to look at that and say, okay, we're going to adopt this or that or what have you, and pass that to the director. It's going to make it a much easier job for the director, and it's going to be much more pleasant for the players. And really, that's what we're here for, is to make it a very pleasant game. And I think Carolyn's point is, when she gives no play and everybody else gives them more time, some people are going to be unhappy here. How come you're treating me this way, the other director? It's a very valid point.
Oh, I
Very valid point. And I think the club managers need to tell us what the policy is, and we as the director need to respect that.
Well, you also need to tell the club manager what your problems are.
Well, the only
Just put it down.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I just had a point. When a partnership is having issues, and there's a couple of people who play together in our club, where one guy is always berating his partner. I mean, sometimes they go outside and you can see them going at it outside. My tendency is, well, if it's a partnership issue, let them fight it out between themselves. But at some point, it becomes disruptive, of course, to everybody else. And then the question is, well, do I get in the middle of a partnership squabble to call zero tolerance and say, hey, you crossed the line, blah, 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 pointing your finger, swearing, or whatever it was. My tendency is, well, if it's a partnership problem, you go outside and you work it out yourself. So I don't want to be in the middle of that. But on the other hand, I can see if you're going to be following the policy directly, you should be applying those same rules to the partnership as well as to an opponent versus another partnership.
You're worried a bit like the police who come to a domestic dispute. They walk in, the husband and wife are fighting like cats and dogs. They kill a policeman and then they go back to fighting.
Right. So what is your take on what to do there?
Well, certainly in front of the opponents. If I sit down at the table, I didn't pay to hear two jackasses go at it.
Yeah, right.
Excuse me. That was probably a zero tolerance. So anything at the table is certainly covered by the zero tolerance.
Right.
And in terms of usually these things boil over before they get outside.
Mm-hmm.
I think once they get outside, they're probably beyond your purview.
Yeah.
But if they boil up, you can certainly say, take it easy, or any more of that, and you're getting a penalty.
Okay, so in that case, you think maybe a first pass warning when they're disrupting the game.
I mean, those
Yeah.
people don't change. So when they come in and buy their entry, you say, no,
Right.
no more of that nonsense.
Yeah.
You're on warning right now.
Okay. All right, I like that.
Yes, sir.
This may be borderline the issue, but it seems to me, that the late plays problem is more, is a greater problem in the local clubs than it is at the tournaments. And I think that the mid-game break that you have gives you a buffer for catching up.
Yes,
I just wonder why the clubs don't do that.
That's true. And we do one break here in the pair games, and so we have to be more vigilant than when we were doing two, because people could sort of slow down, and it actually two breaks benefited the slow players because they knew they could get away with the first 4 rounds because they'd have an extra 5 minutes at the end of the 4th round, and then they'd be back on track till the end of the 9th round. So there is one tip I have for directors. The friend of mine years ago said, there are no slow players. There are only lazy directors.
Amen.
And That's